A good learning environment is one where respect is earned both ways and where instructors understand that the students have something to show them too. I'm Christie Lauder. I am an assistant professor and the interim director of the C&D program at Habib University. I teach creative writing, I teach journalism, and I teach film studies here, and that is it. I've been in Pakistan, in and out of Pakistan for about 10 years now. Dr. Aaron, who is my husband, he was one of the founding faculty members here at the university. So I've always kind of been on the sidelines of Habib. And then when I had the opportunity to come back and join the faculty, I was very excited about it. So horror films are the thing that I enjoy, so that's a fun class for me to teach. I like talking to students about film theory in general, but also to trying to convince people that there's value to be had in things like horror films or horror media, areas that are not considered serious areas of study. I would say, again, that changes, but it's standard across the board, never forget them. Nightmare on Elm Street 1, Nancy is my absolute final girl. Candyman, which I made both of you guys watch that movie. And at any given time, something different. I really love Talk to Me this year. Suspiria from 1978 is a huge one. But I would tell you, I always come back to Freddy. I always come back to Candyman. I just find so much value in those two films, and I'll watch them all the time. In terms of philosophy and like what I'm doing in the classroom, students, you all who are standing in the room and are not in the camera shot right now, you're my partners, right? I am not your master, I am not your president, I am not your mom, right? We are partners in learning, and that's kind of how I try to approach the classroom. Obviously, I do have some authority. Like, I have to give you grades, I have to evaluate you, I have to maybe like yell at you a little bit if you haven't like done your reading or your homework or whatever. But a good learning environment is an area of exchange. So there'll be any kind of feedback. Like we often think of it as a top-down approach. Like, I give you knowledge and then you intuit the knowledge and then you spit it back out. But that's not really what happens in the classroom. You can have a really concrete example, like when we did Zibakana, which is a Pakistani horror film, right? And I turned that class over to the local students to say, I want you to explain this movie to me. I want you to explain the context. I want you to explain the stuff that I might be missing. That's a really concrete example of like information exchange, but there's other things too. Like, sometimes you guys will say something in class and I'm like, I never thought about it. Like, it didn't even occur to me. Things that should be obvious, like someone pointed out, we didn't watch Get Out in this class, but I did in another class, and someone's like, well, her name's Rose. It means love. I was like, oh yeah, right, of course. And that's like a simple thing. And so I'm glad you feel like we're kind of hanging out, but at the end you learn something more than just hanging out. And also, if you don't feel like you can approach me, then how are you going to come to me with problems? How are you going to come to me with questions? How am I going to identify a student who's struggling? Like, the classroom is an academic space, but it's more than an academic space. And part of what I'm here to do is also just kind of help you become better people. That's also part of the teaching and learning experience. I think I attempt to live my life the same way I live my philosophical. I mean, obviously there are positions that I don't agree with, but this is generally how I live my life. I think people are worthy of respect. I think I should treat people with respect. I expect to also be treated with respect, and that's what I take into the classroom. But I'm also somebody who looks for value in things that are not often valued. Horror films is a good example, but I also teach game design. We play role-playing games, we play Dungeons and Dragons. There's a ton of stuff. I teach comic books. I worked in the comic books industry for a long time. These are like nerdy pursuits, but there's a lot to be learned from them, and there's no way for me to separate my life before I came to academia to what I do in academia. And also, it'd be boring if I did. I'd rather do things that I'm interested in, and I would say most academics have that as an answer. But if I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing this, if I'm going to grade 80 to 100 to 120 of papers a semester, I better enjoy the thing that I'm grading.